Welcome back to The Ballad of Dena and Andrea, a podcast showcasing songs and conversations in reaction to the story of Andrea Yates and Dena Schlosser, two women who murdered their children in the early 2000s. I wrote an album based on their story in the style of Appalachian murder ballads to create empathetic myths about these mothers. And with this podcast, I've been able to sit down with friends to talk openly about issues that come up from these songs, like religion, mental health, misogyny, our failing justice system, motherhood, grief, and more. Each episode, I'll tell a bit of the story, bring in a friend to chat, and share a song. Please note, in this podcast, we will discuss postpartum psychosis and depression, domestic abuse, suicide, infanticide, and religious zealotry. Please take care of yourself while listening. Also note, when I use the word women, I aim to include anyone who has identified as a woman, female, or femme at any point in their journey. Okay, here we go. Dena wrote her surviving daughters a letter once a week after her arrest. The letters sat unmailed, waiting for Dena, for the day her daughters might be ready to receive them. Some letters included drawings of children. None of them describe her illness or explain why she killed their sister Maggie. All are filled with how much she loves and misses her daughters. Dena called them her gentle letters. While I was writing this, I was working for a theater company called The Unusual Suspects. We facilitated performance and writing workshops for incarcerated youth. And one day we did an exercise where you were to write a letter to someone on the outside. And one of the kids, who was probably 16, 17, under 18, chose to write to his little kid. And I was learning about these letters at the same time. And that's in this song as well.
Gentle letters like heart attacks, sending you love I will never get back. Gathering dust along their edge, in a pile of words balanced on the ledge. Between the truth I cannot say and the weight of a love I feel every day. For a time I can melt on this page, make these beige walls fall away. Gentle letters sending me back to a time when I held you all on my lap. Rocked and swayed singing baby bye bye, bye oh baby bye oh. But I'm willing to wait, I'll wait as long, afraid I'll wait for the rest of my life. Gentle letters like heart attacks, gather in time I will never get back. Buried next to hope, my words within, telling you a story that your daddy can't spin. When I write to you, I'm not alone, remembering Maggie and that crack of bone. Maybe with time you can see a way to forgive your mind. But I'm willing to wait, I'll wait as long, I'll wait for the rest of my life, afraid I'll wait for the rest of my life. My thoughts are now pure as the driven snow. Medication help me, I swear that's done. I'll write you 1,000 if I write you one. I'll write you 1,000 if I write you one. I'll write you 1,000 if I write you.
Coming to you now is an interview with the producer of the music for the Ballad of Dena and Andrea, the album and the podcast, Abby Posner. We talk about writing through a trance state of grief, her 2023 album Second Chances, the healing power of music, and about working on this podcast story in particular. Abby, as I've mentioned, is an award-winning multi-instrumentalist specializing in genre-bending folk music, and I like what she says. She calls it ameri-kinda. She has music on Hulu, Netflix, the CW, so you know she's hot. Her music video, Quiet on Sunset, was featured on CMT. She scored the music for a wonderful documentary about the pot industry called Ladybuds. Look that up. It's great. She also received official showcases at Americana Fest and Folk Alliance International. She's playing the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival this fall and has an adorable basset hound named Murphy. Here she is, Abby frickin' Posner. Hello, Abby Posner.
Hello, Becky Poole.
We just celebrated a birthday of yours over the weekend, so excuse us listeners if we're extra husky and raspy.
We're very husky. We did get a little bit wrecked wine tasting.
Yeah, real good stuff.
But it was like the good kind of wrecked where you were just around a lot of really good people.
Yeah, like good soul wrecking.
Good soul wrecking, the name of our next album.
Speaking of albums, you just came out with a new album. That album was called Second Chances, and it is freaking amazing. Go get it everywhere you listen to your records. And it was about a really intense breakup and your feelings around that and your experience around that. But you mentioned to me at one point that you always write from a very personal perspective. And I know, like, I write about other people, so I don't have to feel my feelings. No.
That's one way to do it. That's one way to avoid a lot.
What? I'm smart. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and about your process. And is that something that you developed over a time, or was it kind of something that you started? Did you write from a personal perspective right away when you started writing music?
Yeah, so I started writing music very, very young. I started playing guitar when I was about 8, and almost immediately I was just gravitated toward the creative process as opposed to like practice your scales and here's some Beethoven. I was so bored by that. I just wanted to create. And very much right away, I noticed that there was something that music was offering me that was very healing. And it was about the kind of sculpting and painting and creative process. There was something just so fun and freeing about it, but it was also a way that I coped with my emotions. And music, I think, has always been that for me. It's been like the piece of the puzzle that helps me solve something in my mind. I'm able to feel more grounded with it.
Yeah. And where are you from? What was your situation when you started writing?
So I grew up in a really small mountain town called Evergreen, Colorado. And I'm an only child. I have 2 wonderful, wonderful parents that have always been supportive of me and of being an artist and also being queer. But, you know, back in the day when I did come out as a lesbian. She's a lesbian. Shut down the podcast. She's a lesbian.
What? We can't talk about mothers and lesbians at the same time.
Well, that's funny. I have a story about that, but we'll
especially
maybe get
since
there.
Neither of us have kids.
Yeah.
We talk about it.
But I did recognize, you know, at a very young age that I was different. I recognized at a very young age that it wasn't okay to be gay. I recognized at a very young age that I had to kind of survive, and music was always something that helped me understand myself more. It's the longest relationship I've had. It's something that's been the healthiest way of processing my feelings.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Can I ask you, well, not can I, I'm going to. I'm going to ask you a little bit.
You may.
Thank you. About the process, like in a very technical way. Do the songs come when you are in the throes of emotion, or do they come at quieter, more reflective moments?
That's a great question. With this last record, it's funny, people ask me, I've had a few interviews recently where people ask me, how did you do all of this in 1 year? Because I played all the instruments on it and produced it. And I honestly it's not that I dissociated, but there was something happening that was a bit almost like being in a trance state. Like I think at one interview I said, I don't remember. Like it was literally me stitching up my wounds because I was so broken. And also, it was a journey in which I was understanding myself more. So I was going very deep with the shovel, self-reflecting, healing, and writing and creating. So this album in particular was much more intense in terms of like almost being in a bit of a dissociated state that wasn't an unhealthy dissociated state. I think we all we hear that word and we're like, whoa, like, she's gotta go get help. But it was more about I was helping myself, and it was like all I could do was wake up and create in order to feel like I could keep going.
Right,
to be
you
honest.
had an outlet. It was actually keeping you healthy and keeping you mentally healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you remember what's the shortest time span you wrote a song in?
Oh my God. Yeah, there was one song I wrote. It's on the record, and it's called "At Any Cost," and I wrote that so quickly. I feel like it happened in the blink of an eye. I was almost writing it as I was recording it. And I remember it so well. It was raining and the mic was on, and I was just doing a live thing because I had this melody in my head. I mean, honestly, it could have been 20 minutes. It's funny because Becky used so much a part of that song.
Oh, that's right.
Because it's all about kind of like going through grief and heartbreak and having to function in the world, and just all the ways in which we mess up in doing that, and all the ways that we can't function as adults while we're grieving. And so that song was just written after stumbling through life a lot and just making a lot of mistakes. Yeah.
For example?
So that song, At Any Cost, was written about a time where I was touring a lot. My booking agents just said, "Hey, Abby, like, what do you want to do now? Do you want to get on the road?" And I was like, "Yeah, get me out on the road. Put me in there." Because I just didn't want to be like here in LA after going through this breakup. So, which was a mistake because I wasn't ready to be traveling. Like, traveling involves a lot of logistics and a lot of like remembering things. And there was one I was playing in Ohio, a run of shows out there, and I just almost missed my plane. It was raining, I was crying, and I lost my keys on the way to the airport. Later found out that my keys were actually locked in my car that was running in the parking garage at an LAX airport parking lot, and like the battery died and the gas was out, and
did not know until I drove her to that airport. Becky
was
getting that car.
Becky was the superhero of that story, but like couldn't help at all because I had dug myself deep in to a situation where I couldn't get out of until the next day with AAA. So that's what that song is about.
Oh yes, make sure to check your car keys when you leave for the airport is the
lesson.
Or don't, and you get to write a really great song about it.
Or just don't leave the house when you're feeling sad. Like,
that is the wrong lesson.
I think that's just stay in for a second. Maybe don't go touring all the time.
Yeah. Take a breath. Yeah. When you are writing something so personal and so like it clearly about someone, do you hope they do or do not hear it?
That's a great question. Of course I want them to hear it.
Yes.
This is like part of the deal, man. No, I mean, absolutely. This goes back to me being like having crushes on girls, when I was in high school and middle school, and just like I always had this plan, like someday they're gonna hear this on the radio and go, "Oh damn,
I should have held her hand."
Yeah, I should have been gay for her. No, but
trust, after they hear it, they just might be.
You never know. Yes, actually, this is kind of a funny story. My ex, this was kind of basically the whole year was about me trying to repair the relationship and trying to get the relationship in a sense back, and trying to show her all the ways that I was actually ready for the next step. So it actually is not so much about necessarily a breakup, but more about repair. And there was a time in that year where I sat her down and I said, "Are you ready to hear the record now?" And I like made her sit next to me on the couch with my noise canceling headphones to listen to the whole thing front to back. And I said very specifically to her, "I'm fun to date, you guys. I'm really fun to date. You should really date me." I said, I need for you to hear this from your heart, not your head.
Oh, no. Oh, But
no, the thing about my ex is that she loved my music so much, and she was such a supporter of my writing and like a major fan. And so she wanted to hear it. And yeah, and it was a very sweet moment that we had where she was able to like give me, some of that. I don't know, like she was holding space for the record.
I'm really happy to hear that. Actually, I was curious if you had ever.
Yeah, she heard the whole thing front to back. That's also, sidebar, if you listen to the record and you're, seeing how genuine it is, because it really came from a very, very sincere, genuine place, and you're not able to like take me back, like
let it
wasn't
go.
Meant to be. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have the space for that to see like someone's doing a lot of work here and like showing up major and trying to clean up a mess, like, well, if you heard that and that's not going to win you over, nothing will.
Yeah, and I guess
it's true.
Right. And that gives the person, it gives you the ability to move on. It gives the other person the ability to move on and to see it from that angle.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a pause because I'm trying to pull it back to the like Dena and Andrea, and I'm like,
I might have gotten real personal there. I hope she hears this from her heart.
I hope she hears this from her heart. I'll send her a copy.
There were definitely songs that I wrote that were like, this is probably inappropriate and I should probably not say that, because it got so deeply personal between me and my ex and our situation that I kind of, in a sense, wanted to protect her.
For sure.
And wanted to protect our bubble that we had at the time. Yeah. So I think that there were certain songs that I did write last year that were kind of like a little bit more on the angrier side and more frustrated.
This one's called "She's a Bitch."
This one's called, whatever.
Like just too much to share.
I didn't want to make her look bad. I didn't want to make anybody seem like the bad guy. I mean, I think after the album came out, I did start writing a little bit more from an angrier side, because that's also very healthy. But what's going to be published, I think, it's important, this is not my music anymore. It's everyone's, because once it goes into the world, it becomes the listeners also and their story. So I have to be careful with how much I'm revealing.
Yeah, that's interesting, even in terms of the podcast or writing about anybody else's story. And that is something that it gets foggy for me in terms of talking about other people's stories. It's like, I want to be respectful and I want to be truthful. But. Yeah,
because you're putting something out there that is not directly your voice. It's still your voice, but it's like you're pulling other people into this, right? And very much so, especially in the podcast.
For sure.
There's a responsibility there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every time, you're like filtering it through your own art. I think there's also like, that's what you do as an artist. It's not. Yeah. I think this is kind of the similar question. Like, have you ever written a letter to yourself? Have you ever written to like an airport and been like, can you stop?
I wrote to the plane this morning and I said, at 12:12 to 12 p.m. I need you to fly over, but like really loud. Because I'm going to turn up the mic and just sample that.
But anyway.
Yeah, so I think I did write a letter to myself. Maybe it was like in college at a creative writing workshop that I did. I haven't done it recently, but I do think most of the record that I just put out is actually in reality a little bit of a letter to myself.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be, probably already is, really helpful for other people too, going through similar issues.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too, like with the podcast, just to kind of tie it back to that. I think that when you put something out there that's deeply personal, or it's a story about someone else, people are going to gravitate toward it, and they're going to, like I said, it becomes theirs, and then they can kind of deconstruct whatever you're putting out into the world into their own story. Like it breaks down a different way in their body.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so great about this podcast is like it's very specific. There's a lot of specificities happening here, but someone else can take that and go, oh, I struggled in this, or I had mental health issues, or I didn't want to XYZ choose to be a parent, but I did, or whatever it is. There's a lot that you can pull from in this.
Yeah. I hope so. And I hope that I'm not hurting anybody by doing it. But yeah.
I mean, the truth is this is a very risky, ballsy podcast. And I think it's great because first of all, there's nothing like it out there. These stories haven't been told, from what I know, in this more mainstream way in podcasts world. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure, but this story is very specific and has become. I mean, like I say like I've said before in the podcast, is that it is more of a myth at this point because it's taken information from their stories and like nobody really knows how they feel, and I thought to me, that was the problem. Well,
you also are interpreting
exactly.
a lot. Yep. So this is an interpretation tale.
For sure. It's myth creation, not a documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I want to ask you about dealing with the material in the podcast. Like, as the producer of the music, Abby's the producer of the music, but you already know that.
Oh my God.
OMG.
What?
How was it to create with these topics? Or like, was it heavy? Was it just like, no, I have a professional head on right now, I don't need to?
Ooh, I think I had a little bit of both, because I didn't quite understand. Like when Becky came to me at first, I think we went out to dinner, maybe had a couple old fashions. I didn't quite understand how this all tied together.
Yeah. And
I didn't understand kind of what Becky's, and maybe at the time you didn't either, like
it's
what
possible.
Your journey was, what the purpose of this was.
Yeah.
And then I think as we started making it more, I started to really understand these songs and the story of the two women. And I do think that in that process, I was, wearing a professional hat, but I think it also was just very sad. And I was able to I think this is a really interesting conversation about empathy. And like where and how to access it in a very unusual way.
Yeah.
Because it's, in a lot of ways, these women are like just painted out as the bad guys, right? Yep. Like they're just terrible people for doing what they did. But when you really get into the ins and outs of their experience and their mental health and the abuse that they had experienced, there's room for a different kind of empathy there. And I think that's just really important in the world right now with what we're all experiencing, the wars going on, where everybody's picking a side. And I mean, not to get too into the weeds about this, but it's like human beings, and just having empathy for human beings in general.
Yeah. That is my hope. That's the goal, right? I think in probably most art, if it's like, at least if it's sad, I don't know.
Sometimes it's hard to really understand the other perspective, though. And I'm always the kind of person that wants to hear both sides.
Yeah. I mostly am, but sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
but I am definitely not someone who's like, there's two sides to every story, because sometimes there is not.
Sometimes
I mean, there's always,
not, but there's a lot of nuance in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I always try and tap into that with my music, is like the nuance, and the things aren't so black and white.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I want to try to have a positive or and sort of action item for people as we talk about this stuff, just so it's not all sad. So I want to ask you about mental health work you do with, oh my goodness,
Trevor.
Oh yes, Trevor, and the
Tools for Peace.
Tools for Peace. Those two. If you could talk about those things, I would love that.
Yeah. So I'm finding that there's like, everybody has a calling or a purpose, without getting too like deeply religious or spiritual, which I'm not really religious, but I do believe that we all kind of have a purpose. And I've recently kind of discovered that if you come from a place of having some privilege, and you live a pretty decent life, that it's important to give back in some way. I just feel like that's really how I want to live my life from now on. And in that, I have been really drawn to supporting youth and supporting kids, especially lately after COVID, going through major mental health crisis. And the suicide rate is just very, very high for like little itty bitty ones from like 13 to 25. It's just gone up since COVID, and especially in the LGBTQ community. So I started training to be a Trevor Project counselor about 5 months ago. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it is a crisis hotline for LGBTQ youth. And that's just been an incredible, very challenging experience. I actually just had my very first real shift recently.
Oh,
And
I
it
didn't
was,
know that.
yeah, it was a lot, and it was also very sobering.
I like that.
Yeah, because I think it just makes you go, oh, wow. It gets you out of your own bubble. People are really, really struggling right now, and people are losing their jobs or losing their homes or deeply, deeply depressed.
Losing their minds.
Losing their minds. Uh-huh.
Sorry, not to make light of that, but yes.
Yeah, and this is not just specifically aimed at helping people with mental health issues, though that is a big part of it, and the contacts that reach out struggle, but not all of them. So, mental health has always been something that I care deeply about, especially with kids. I've been really gravitated to working more with teens lately. Yeah. And that's the same work at Tools for Peace. We practice mindfulness and meditation with the kids, similar age demographic, 11 to 18. And we have a summer camp there that we work with the kids, and they get grants to go to the summer camp, and we teach them about mindfulness. So that work is really near and dear to my heart, because I feel like it offers kids a different way to approach anxiety, depression, and mental health, in general, by using meditation. I'm not saying it's the only way.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a big advocate of medication also, if you need it. But I think it's just another way of like centering yourself. And
oh, absolutely. It is a good tool.
It is a good tool.
Peace.
Yeah, for peace.
Inside and outside.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, Abby. I don't have any more questions, but if you have questions for me right now, if you're like, you know what, I never understood about the show.
We're talking a little bit about music and grief and my record, but I want to know more. What was your favorite song that we worked on, and why?
Ooh, that's interesting. First of all, I just working with you really leveled up all of it. So it's hard for me to pick, because I'm like, they became something entirely different. They did something better. So maybe I would say even the first song that we worked on, which was the song of today, the Gentle Letters, because I was like, wow, this can be a real song. And I think it helps them be more accessible to people. I was able to take it more seriously than I had. Instead of like kind of apologizing for a song, I could be like, oh no, this is, in order to put this in the public, it has to be something that is taken care of in the way that I think the story should be taken care of. So that was a big realization in working with the music with you. And yeah, those songs.
Cool. You're going to have to edit all of my...
No, I know. I tried. I'm like, how to be an active listener on a podcast.
But that's like part of the podcast sound now.
Exactly.
If like anyone listens to any podcast, there's like with several women, unfortunately.
Yes, I hear you. Right. The NPR moans. Although it's better than just being like, better than if we were like, yeah, bro, yeah. No, grief, man.
Bitches,
Grief. Bros. Nice, you said hoes. I said bros. Hoes before bros. Let's never forget.
Let's never forget. That should be our slogan at the end of every pod.
Exactly.
Hoes before bros. We can do hard things.
We can do hard things. Oh, you did get a Glennon Doyle shout out in there, didn't you?
I had to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Abby.
Oh, thank you so much. And this was just such an amazing journey working with you on these songs. And this one in particular, Gentle Letters, is just so deeply moving, and it really takes you there. So this has just been such a wonderful thing for me as well. And to be your friend, but like to work with you in this way.
Yeah, indeed. Ditto. Thanks so much. And check out Abby's album. It's called Second Chances, and it's Abby Posner. And you can follow her on all the things. They can get it on everywhere, right? Spotify, Apple,
everywhere.
All that stuff.
Yep. It's on all the streaming. You can also just order directly from my website.
That's what I was going to say. AbbyPosner.com. Check her out. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Beck.
If you'd like more information on postpartum psychosis and depression, please go to postpartum.net. There are additional links to mental health, safety, and reproductive resources in the show notes, as well as links to information mentioned in this show. You can listen to the full album of songs for the Ballad of Dena and Andrea on Spotify or Apple, wherever you find your music. Songs were written by me, Becky Poole, and produced by award-winning multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and incredible music producer, Abby Posner. Find her at abbyposner.com. Theme also composed and played by Abby. Special thank yous to Evan Mosier for audio editing and mixing, to Andrew and the team at Voice Tracks West in Los Angeles, and to you for listening. Please join me in future episodes as we explore more themes around the Ballad of Dena and Andrea.